you to Tuscaloosa Talk. This is a new podcast that we've started to really just get people interested in what's going on in their city and to get deeper onto some really cool stories that happens within Tuscaloosa. And we're here today at Mount Pilgrim Baptist Church, and we're going to be speaking to Pastor Kennedy in just a second. But the reason why we're hosting the podcast here is because about 2 years ago, there was a major fire that destroyed the sanctuary of this church and could have done a lot more harm. And so before Pastor Kennedy shares some of the miracles of that day, I'd like you to share what you were sharing with me earlier about what exactly the Tuscaloosa Fire and Rescue took on that day. And so, Lieutenant, I know that you were first on scene here. Describe to laymen like me what you were seeing when you arrived.
Well, en route, we came from the drill field, so we had a good little ways to actually get here. We were actually training, and when we started heading this direction, there was obviously a lot of smoke in the area, and it appeared, even from a far distance, that there was a great deal of fire. When we got on scene, we were the first engine company, third vehicle on scene, and there was a significant amount of fire towards the daycare area of the church, which I guess would be towards the right-hand side of the church, towards the back. And when we got here, obviously we have different modes of attack. And we were, at the time, trying to go into a fast attack, trying to make quick decisions so we can mitigate the problem before it gets any further.
Now, when you arrived, did you know about the whereabouts of the children that were in the daycare center?
No, sir. Because at the time, I was a floating lieutenant, and so I would go from different stations all over. It's just part of the process. Mm-hmm. And I was at Engine 5 and that day. And so I wasn't familiar with it. You could kind of see with the layout how things would kind of work. Mm-hmm. That obviously the front was the front narthex, and then either the right was some kind of daycare room. I think there might have been some stuff on the windows that kids had done, drawn, whatever, things like that appeared to be of that nature. And so when we got on scene, we used the water that we had on our truck, which is 500 gallons. It's not a lot. Just to see if we could not do some knockdown. But obviously that was a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
But our first priority that we were given, that I was given from my officer, Captain Thompson, he was actually stepped up as a battalion chief that day. And was our first priority.
Lucky for you, right? Yeah.
Our first priority was actually making sure the kids were not in there. So that was the number one thing, was not so much putting the fire out with what little resources we had at the moment, was making sure that we didn't have kids in there. And that's basically where I could leave that at.
Chief Klosterman had come by Station 1, had come by my office when the call came in. So Chief Klosterman and I got here at the same time. And he went around back, so he was my eyes in the back, and I set up command in the front. And the teachers of the daycare did a great job, because it's almost like they had a special meeting point by the tree outside in the corner. So when I came up, all the children were there, and I asked them, I said, is everyone accounted for? They said yes. So we teach that in Project Fire, have a special meeting place, whether it's a home or a daycare or a school. When you do fire drills, they go to their designated spot. So I was like, make sure you have all your children. And when Engine 5 got here, I said, go in and make sure that there's no one left in this building. The fire had already broken out of the roof on the back side where Chief Klosterman was. So as trucks came, we set up assignments. And there again, big fire, big water. This is a large building. And once they made sure that the building was clear, then we could attack the fire. So that was our second priority.
So how long does that take? How long did it take us that day to get in there and search?
It seemed like an eternity, but it probably wasn't more than 3 or 4 minutes. Engine 7 would have been the closest truck. Mm-hmm. They were at the fire college doing an extrication drill. So 5 was out of pocket too. So as soon as they got here and then the ladder truck showed up, I immediately said, hey, let's set the ladder truck up, big fire, big water, and go ahead and get that and try to knock it down. I've got people in there. Chief Klosterman was directing fire streams from the backside also. And we just could never, it had already gotten ahead of us. So we were trying to catch up and cut it off. We wanted to save the sanctuary in the educational rooms. We burnt the roof off the educational classrooms. Worst case scenario, which would happen, we just stop it. We just want to find a place and stop it. So that was our main objective. And as the fire grew, more people came, more trucks came, second alarms, chiefs were notified, the water department, all these other resources began to come. There's this huge plume of smoke in the daytime. Imagine if this fire had been at 2 in the morning. We wouldn't have had the daycare issue, but this fire could have really gotten out of hand before anyone would have driven by and just say, hey, there's a lot of fire here.
Yeah.
We probably would have burnt everything but the foundation of this church if it had been at night.
I want you, before we get to Pastor Kennedy, you were sharing a story with all of us outside where we had a backdraft that miraculously no one was hurt. Would you just describe what you shared with all of us, just one of the miracles of that day?
Well, really, that particular fire, you could kind of see how smoke works. We trained to be able to read smoke. The smoke was kind of changing from more of a puffing smoke to a lifting smoke to more of a forceful, dark smoke, which indicates, hey, it's starved for air. You've got to have certain things to create fire, and it needs air. So when the backdraft occurred, it got the air it needed, and then everything ignited. And so it blew the bricks out on the front. The steeple came down, blew the bricks out of the back, blew the steeple down the front. We had personnel at the front. We were, and the chief's job, part of their job as they were outside, was to kind of evaluate the exterior of the building because we had people inside the building. They couldn't see that. So the chiefs on the outside are kind of like, hey, this is starting to deteriorate. Let's get everybody out. So as soon as they got out, it backdrafted. And the bricks blew out, and then the steeple fell. So not only were the people inside in danger, but they could have been hurt on the outside also.
So how much time elapsed between us recognizing that and getting our people out?
45 seconds. I mean, it was fast. Amazing. I've talked to some firefighters, and they were like, I'm glad you called us out, because just the forceful explosion of that, I won't say it was an explosion, but just the way the fire was so starved for air, just pushed. I said it was getting us as we were coming out.
Well, I want you to know, I wish everyone could just see how brave the men and women are of Tuscaloosa Fire and Rescue, and I appreciate the job that you do. On that day, you and your companies were heroes to this community and to this church and to our entire city. We're never able to say it adequately enough, but thank you for what you do every single day, and thank you for taking a little bit of time to share on this podcast and also take a tour of the church. It was exciting for me as a layman to hear you talk about the experiences of the day and what your crews went through. So please thank them for me, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're joined by the pastor here at Mount Pilgrim Baptist Church, Pastor Frank Kennedy. Pastor, good morning.
Good morning to you, Mayor.
Well, before we talk about this church burning down and then rising back from the ashes, do you remember how we first met?
Yeah. It was downtown. You was having a running deal, am I right?
Yeah.
And Mr. Buller, he had invited me to come, and I was there, and I met you there.
Dale Bullard is really the father of the Mayor's Cup run.
Yeah.
And then we got to know each other, if you remember, a little bit better, because you used to have a church in Northport. Much smaller church than what we're in today.
Oh, yeah, got you.
And we would have that pesky air show.
That's right.
And what would that air show do to your church?
It would shut me down on Sunday. It would shut me down on Sunday.
And Pastor, you were always so good to work with. And, I want you to know that you were always so accommodating, and because we had to, for people who don't know, we had to shut down certain places of airspace. So your church was in that airspace.
Yeah, but you was always so accommodating, because everything we asked you to do, you did it for us.
Well,
so we're so grateful for having you our mayor.
Well, I feel the same. I'm grateful that you've been part of my life, and so, and really, we've been talking about God and how He makes things happen a lot this morning. And I think back that those early relationships were for a reason.
Yeah.
Which gets me to here today.
Yeah.
Describe to me what you saw that day when this church was on fire.
Like every day, I'm around doing something, and so I had plans with Mr. Walton that he'll come and bring his trailer, and we go pick up some mulch and put around the shrubby beds. And so we had gone to do that, and went and were coming back. Was coming back, I looked over and I saw smoke, and I said, "Oh, my old buddy burning up some copper this morning," like that. And so we come on to the end of the street, and we started up and got to the gateway to come in. I said, "Take me to the front," because I was looking at the smoke. It wasn't coming from where I thought it was coming from. And I saw it was coming from the back here. So I jumped out of the truck, ran down, because I knew the children was in there, to make sure that those children come out of there. And so when I got there, the children was coming out, thank the Lord. And what a miracle it was. I was sharing with you.
Yeah, please share that story. You about to share the ceiling
Yeah,
style?
I'm about to share.
Let me just warn people at home. Get ready to get goosebumps. All right, now share the story. This is amazing.
Yeah, out of the eyes and the mouth of babes, the Lord speaks. And we had a water leak up from the air conditioner in the top of the ceiling, and we took the towel down, and I was the one that replaced it. So about how I replaced it. But anyway, putting it up, I broke the edge off of it, missed and broke the edge. But I wouldn't replace it, I just left it up there. This was God's plan, to leave that there, and I left it there. And while the children was in there, one of the little girls looked up and told the teacher, she said, "There's a fire up there." And they gathered the children, and they came out by the word of that child. So they always teach you to pay attention to what children are saying. And they came out, and it was a miracle, because 51 of them, nobody got hurt. And the next miracle was, and we missed one, the chief missed one.
Okay.
But I collected it right here in the front. They was watering down the side of the building. They had come in their gateway there, and we had a walkway and come down, and they was in there watering it down. And Chief, you might remember this, that building collapsed, and you had 3 firemen in there. And we just knew they were gone. And God blessed those 3 firemen. How did they get out of there? I don't know. But they walked out of that fire back to the outside. Wow. That was the second miracle. Then the third miracle was on the back here when they were trying to save the building, our Life Center. And the building blew up, and bricks and stones went everywhere. And nobody got hurt. And that's just the awesomeness of God. He's some kind of God.
It's as you've been describing the day, and we've heard from our firefighters as well, it's like God's hand of protection was over this place.
It was over this place. It was over this place. He covered them with his blood, and thank God.
Well, and it's amazing, and I know, a lot of times when people like me get into the spirituality of it, I'm not as well versed as you are in saying it or understanding it, but to know that ceiling tile chipped.
Yeah.
For that reason, for the protection of those precious babies.
Yeah, and that shows you God have purpose for everything.
Yes.
At that moment when I broke that, we never did know, and that probably was months before then, and never paid any attention or thinking anything would be happening there that would causing someone to look up and see and 51 lives be saved.
Well, what impressed me the day that I came, the day of the fire, and we came out here, and your church is burning in front of you, and you and I are talking out there in the front, and you were already talking about building back.
That's right.
How you were going to use this.
Yeah.
How do you see this new Mount Pilgrim, so to speak? How do you see it in its role in this community?
It's amazing, but God has blessed us because this is God's purpose. We're in the Master's plan, and this was God's plan. We didn't understand it then, but now we understand it. And God has blessed us, and we have the facilities to facilitate every need that we have in this community to reach out. And God has blessed us. We brought on a youth pastor, and we're going to be able to get out into the streets, into the hedges, and work these, canvas these communities that we'll bring children in and train them to learn how to love God. Got to learn how to love Him first before you can love anyone else. And
Well, some rapid fire questions as we close. What year did you become a minister?
68.
68. What?
86.
86. What drove you into ministry?
Oh, the good Lord, the Spirit of the Lord. I had no idea about preaching or pastoring. But can I say this? When I was young, and I told them the other day at church, there was an old school teacher in my community named Miss Pilgrim Baptist. And she was the musician at Morning Star Baptist Church. And I was a member of Second Baptist Church, but my parents was a member at that church. And I always bought fancy cars, nice cars. And by her house was the park, and everybody would gather. And all the girls and things would love to come out and see my fancy cars, and I'd give them a ride and so forth. But she called me into her house. And these are the words she said. She said, "Look, Kennedy," that's what she called me, because she was my teacher. She said, "Come here." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And I went into her house. She said, "Sit down." And I went in and sat down. Let's show you how God worked. She said, "I just called you." Said, I see you with your nice cars, and everybody like them, and all the girls and things come up around them. She said, "But I just want to tell you, be careful about how you carry yourself among them, because one day you might have to preach to those same people."
Really? Wow.
So, here 30-something years later,
Wow.
I'm preaching.
Well, I've known you now for a long time,
Yeah.
and I hope this podcast, people can feel what we feel in this room right now. Your passion, the Spirit of God
Yeah.
through you. It's so genuine.
Yeah. And
It really is.
Yeah.
Now, what's going to be the first sermon you preach in here?
I'm going to talk about the Master's plan. And how can we forget
Wow.
the Master's plan, from which He brought us from to where we are now.
What struck me in our conversations as we toured today is we're excited about the opening, but you're even more excited about what you can do with
what we're
this.
going to be able to do, the future, not just the now, because He built this for the future.
Amen.
This is God's plan. And at this moment and this day, we're part of the plan. But this plan will continue even when we've gone off show.
And so this used to be South Highlands Baptist.
South Highland.
Tell people real quick what's happened over since the church burned, how former members of that church have come by.
I've had so many former members to come by, and they sit down and talk with me because they was members of the church, and they tell me so many stories about the church and the sentimental values that they had in the church and the building during their lifetime, their weddings and all of that. Mm-hmm. And just the other week, I had two people, I won't call their name, a husband and wife, and I was sitting there on the pulpit, and they came in, and the side door was open, and they came and walked in, and they said, "Are you Pastor Kennedy?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." They say, "I'm Mr. and this Miss, and this is my husband, Mr." And I say, "Well, come right in." I said, "I'm so glad to meet you all." And they sat down and they talked and they shared with me their life. And they married in this church, their life in the church and so forth. And when they got ready to go, they said, "We're not going to hold you because it looked like you're working." I said, "But I always got time." And so they said to me, they say, "We've been blessed and we want to bless you all." And they left us a gift, an offering for $25,000.
$25,000.
$25,000.
Wow. God is good, isn't He?
God is good.
That is, wow.
Yeah.
You just, that's emotional for me, and I can't imagine what it must have meant for you.
Yeah, God is so good.
That's
and all other people have been great to us during these times of trials. Yeah. We never went lacking. And we want to thank you in the city because you did everything you told us you were going to do. And I can tell anybody you're a man of your word.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
You might not fit everybody's pants, but you're a man of your word.
Well, thank you. That means a lot, Pastor. And all right, my last rapid fire question for you. Your favorite hymn?
My favorite hymn is "A Charge to Keep I Have, a God to glorify, every dying soul to save, fitted for the sky. May all my power engage to do my master's will.
Amen. I don't think there's a better way to end it.
Yeah.
I appreciate everyone tuning in to Tuscaloosa Talk. And if somebody was interested in to continue to help your ministry here at Mount Pilgrim Baptist Church,
Yes.
Who do they need to reach out to, whether it's a mailing address, phone number, or
Yeah.
website?
They can send it by 128 39th Street, East Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to $DeAndrea K.
Sounds good. Pastor, thank you for being with us.
Thank you
God
so
bless
much.
you.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank
and
you.
may God continue to bless you
Thank
and
you.
bless the city of Tuscaloosa.
Thank you, my friend.
God bless you.
Thank you.